Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Joining us today is Dr. Arthur Dean, Research Fellow at Institute of International Relations. Dr. Dean, we've been talking about military balance in Asia in general. Let's talk about Taiwan Strait. Do you think that the military balance in the Taiwan Strait is being shifted towards China's favor?
Yes, as we said earlier, that with China's growing military capability, the balance of power is gradually in China's favor. There's no doubt about that.
But what can we do to redress the imbalance situation in the Taiwan Strait?
Well, I would say it takes very comprehensive, measures and programs to address this issue. For instance, what kind of strategy? And in line with strategy, what kind of weapon we need? And also what kind of training and restructure, organizational restructure. So we really need to thoroughly think about, is any what we need in the futures.
But there are some structural constraints on Taiwan's rational development strategies. For instance, in terms of weapons, it probably is true that we should buy some weapons, but in fact, we cannot buy those weapons because it appears to us that the U.S. now is the only country in the world who is willing to sell weapons to Taiwan. So this kind of rational discussion about strategies may not match with the realities in Taiwan. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, we all know that Taiwan has been criticized for a long time that our military strategy is not rigorous, is not rational enough. Our procurement is not rigorous enough. But the problem is that if you need a coherent, rigorous strategy, then you need hardware systems to support this kind of strategy. But the problem is that we know that, as you said earlier, United States is the only supplier for weapons to us. And also, United States selectively to provide what they see fit for us.
So it's not what we see fit for us, right?
Yes. So that's why I would say our defense planner really has difficulty to give a very comprehensive, coherent, rigorous, rational defense planning.
But let's look at PRC's military deployment on the opposite side of Taiwan Strait. What are their game planning in terms of in contingencies of military conflicts in the Taiwan Strait?
Well, from the military exercise they have done in the past decades, we can see a change. Before I would say maybe 2004 or 2005, the China has launched the so-called the major focus maybe is the so-called cycle warfare. In their mouthpiece in Hong Kong, for instance, 大公报 and 文汇报, they carry says China launched large-scale amphibious military exercise and mobilize hundreds, thousands of soldiers, so on and so forth. So this is what I call the psychological warfare. But particularly enter the 21st century, I would say, China realized, and also in line with the shifting the military strategy more toward the joint operation, they realized that this kind of psychological warfare did not work anymore. And there's also need for them to develop very rigorous, effective operational capability. That's why they stopped to launch this kind of psychological warfare, and instead they keep low profile, take very rigorous military training and military exercise. So we can see the trend is that China will be more realistic. They know the so-called large-scale amphibious is not realistic, it's not practical. And they need to also have a better capability. Someone calls it acupuncture warfare.
That's right.
In very short,
quick war.
To paralyze Taiwan's capability in a very short term. So to force Taiwan in the negotiation table and in China's favor for the terms of the political negotiation.
The increasing number of missiles deployed by the PRC the upper side of Taiwan Strait has been an issue that's been debated. And is that in line with your views about the so-called psychological warfare and possible acupuncture or show war against Taiwan?
Yes, I kind of agree that we know that in terms of conventional capability, China still not match that of the United States. So those ballistic and cruise missiles, one of the so-called trump card, so-called the trump card they have so far, along with the so-called cyber warfare. Yeah. But they also have a point toward the United States, actually, to show how serious they are about the so-called their policy toward Taiwan. And also, this kind of missile also target the U.S. assets deployed in the Guam, not in Guam, in the Japan and the Taiwan's surrounding area.
Okinawa,
yes. So I would say it's not just targeted against Taiwan, but also targeted against the Okinawa and the Japanese foes.
Yeah, but coming back to the anti-satellite weapons, China's shooting down of the satellite, is that also related to China's efforts to deter the U.S. from intervening in the Taiwan affairs?
Yes, actually we know that in the modern warfare, those so-called defense support system is more important than the combat force. So if China can jam, not just to shoot down, can effectively jam those satellites deployed in the space, then the U.S. will not able to effectively to get involved in the Taiwan Strait. So that's why, as I said in the beginning, that the China sent a very strong signal to the United States that we are capable enough.
Yeah, but will that affect the security and peace in the Taiwan Strait?
At least it can, in the long run, it will affect the peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, because if 20 years down the road, China feel confident about themselves, and they see the political need for the unification, then they can launch the military operation. Yeah. Then the U.S. will be deterred from getting involved in the Taiwan Strait. So in the long term, it did affect the Taiwan Strait, the security situation in the Taiwan Straits.
You've been talking to and interacting with many Chinese, PLA people and also scholars as well. And in their mind, do they see that a quick and short war in the Taiwan Strait is a possibility?
That is their aspiration and the desire, the directions. Although maybe at this stage they don't know how far they will be successful to execute this kind of warfare. But that is the aspiration and the desired direction.
But is that kind of scenario they are thinking about? If there's a war, there must be a quick and short war in the Taiwan Strait.
Yeah, they did hope wish a quick and short war, so that the Taiwan's economic infrastructure will not be totally ruined, and they don't need to spend more money to help to build to develop the Taiwan's economic systems.
Yeah, some experts in Taiwan argue that there is no way that Taiwan can engage in some sort of arms races with the PRC. So what we can do is to try to maintain a credible deterrence, not arms race or balance in the Taiwan Strait. Do you agree with that kind of argument?
Well, actually, in terms of military balance, everybody knows that it's an impossible mission for Taiwan. Yeah. Even in the United States, I used to talk with a senior U.S. government official. They say they don't expect the military balance in the Taiwan Strait. Yeah. What they expect is that to increase China's military cost of military actions.
So that's part of deterrence, right?
Yes. So China will think over again before they take military actions. What we do actually from the China's experience, we can see that although we don't have the capability as China has, able to shooting down satellites with their missiles, but from the experience, we know that particularly from the Falun Gong, this kind of religious group, they used to jam China's communication satellites. Yeah. So actually, it's not a very sophisticated, not a very high-tech capability. Actually, we can do that. So in order to address the Taiwan's growing military capability, actually we have several not so high-tech approach we can take.
Yeah.
For instance, we can jam. We don't need to shoot down, but if we can jam the China's satellites long enough, then they will lose the so-called command control capability. Then they have to think about what next the step they should take.
Yeah. So we can still pretty much maintain some sort of balance in terms of this satellite technology and jamming technologies.
Yeah, we can maintain, but it seems to become more and more difficult.
Yeah. But some people argue that the best way to deter the others from attacking you is to acquire some offensive capabilities. Is that true? And do you buy that kind of argument?
Well, it's kind of I would say, as to some extent, I kind of agree with this kind of argument, because as we know that China's capability has grown to a certain level that so-called purely defensive capability were not able to address to effectively to counter the China's this kind of capability. So if China across this kind of level, then what we should do? Then maybe limited. We can debate to what extent how far is limited, but I would say limited offensive capability is a way out. We have to think about.
But the U.S. only supplies defensive weapons of defensive nature to Taiwan, and how can Taiwan develop this kind of offensive capabilities by doing it indigenously?
I would say it's a matter of precision, because we know that it's not technological speaking, it's not so difficult to develop ballistic missile. Actually, you launch it, and you don't need to care about concern about the precision, as long as it can fall into the China. So even North Korea can build a ballistic missile. Iraq also can build a ballistic missile, while Taiwan cannot.
Okay.
But the problem is that how precision we need. What kind of operational doctrine is, for instance, counter value or counter force. Counter value then is a moral obligation. Should we humanitarian civilian casualties? Then will this backfire and backlash? That is the issue, an issue we have to think about.
That's right. And other people also argue that maybe it's a good way to establish some sort of confidence-building measures, CBMs, between the two sides in order to stabilize the situation in the Taiwan Strait. Do you think that's a feasible option for Taiwan?
Well, I would say it's kind of a desire, because we have, it has been our policy that to build up the so-called CBM, confidence-building measures. But in China's side, the problem is in their side, because they set up the so-called political precondition. So-called, we all know that the so-called one China. So at this stage, I don't think that China would accept the so-called endorse the CBM between the Taiwan and China. But we can see a sign that as time goes by, China gradually to change the policy toward Taiwan. Although it's more functional change, not fundamental change. But I would say probably it's time for Chinese leaders to think about, what kind of CBM measures we can build up.
Finally, let's talk about the prospect for cross-strait stability in the near future. Are you pessimistic or optimistic about the peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait?
Well, I would say kind of cautious or optimistic, because I would say it seems, particularly after the December election in Taiwan, the Kaohsiung and the Taipei city mayor elections, China realized that they have to deal with the current ruling party DPP government. They have to face the reality. So from in the past 2 months, we can see China seems to become more forthcoming in terms of functional exchange with Taiwan. So with that, and we can. This is why I have some kind of the optimistic, cautious optimistic.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Dean, for your insightful comments. Thank you for coming to our program.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Taiwan Outlook, and Happy New Year.